I'm not in the business of covering up for shitty men. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Pop Cults with Cassie, where we talk about all things cults and pop culture. I'm Cassie Marie, and today we're talking about YouTuber and ex-Scientologist Aaron Smith-Levin. If you, for some reason, don't know who that is and still want to watch this deep dive or listen because you are nosy like me, Aaron Smith-Levin is an ex-Scientologist that was featured in an episode on Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath, and then went on to help create the Aftermath Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation that helps Scientologists escape from Scientology, and started the YouTube channel called Growing Up in Scientology, where he posts a lot of content exposing Scientology with the goal to bring them down and bring down David Miscavige, Scientology's leader. You may have caught on that I said that Aaron Smith-Levin is an ex-Scientologist, not a current Scientologist, not a cult leader, not a celebrity cult member. So why am I doing a deep dive on him? Aaron Smith-Levin has had many a controversy since leaving Scientology and coming out and telling his story. In my opinion, because he is not a safe person and is a member of the ex-cult community creating ex-cult or anti-cult content, I think it's important that we discuss some of these controversies, what that means for people who present themselves online and build a following, and what the ex-cult member to influencer pipeline sometimes looks like, of which I am a part of, and what can happen when we don't deconstruct from the cults that we're part of and instead just move on to the next thing with similar tactics of control. I think that can happen within the context of being a victim over and over again, or even being a perpetrator or victim to perpetrator. There's a lot of different ways that this can look, and I believe that Aaron Smith-Levin is more on the perpetrator end of that spectrum. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like when influencers become cult-like themselves. And we're also going to talk a little bit about cult documentaries and how they can be so great for spreading awareness, but can also do harm in the process, since Aaron Smith-Levin got his kind of start on Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath docuseries. And there's a lot of cult documentary discussion that comes into this deep dive. I also personally think that Aaron Smith-Levin is a misogynist that has shown a pattern of hating women, has been accused of harming women several times, and of using his platform to do so. And he is wreaking havoc on the ex-Scientology community. So there's a lot to look at here. There's a lot to discuss. This is more of an intro than I usually do for any of my episodes. So we're going to really quickly talk about my pop cult obsessions of the week. But I wanted to frame this episode in that context before I move forward. I feel like there's not a whole lot going on in terms of pop culture this week, except for the Olympics, which I am 100% locked into. I am spending most of my free time actually watching the Olympics with my family. So that's been a lot of fun. We are loving the men's figure skater, Ilya Malinin, the quad god, the backflip guy. We're loving it. Snowboarding, I think, though, is my favorite Winter Olympics sport. I like big air, half pipe, snowboard cross, I actually think is really fun to watch. And what's the other one that they do? Oh, like freestyle or slope style. I've been having so much fun watching that. Actually, one of the the men's snowboard cross guys is like 44 years old. And I think I remember watching him in the Olympics 4 years ago, and it was like a big deal that he was 40 years old. And I just love the concept that anyone over like 30 or 35 in the Olympics is just this like grandma or grandpa. And it's like so amazing and so incredible to be competing at their geriatric age. Also, James Van Der Beek died this week, which was really sad. It was so sad seeing everybody's tributes to him online, all of his famous friends and family members and non-famous friends just talking about how kind he was, how much he meant to them. Yeah, it was just devastating. He died of cancer and had 6 children and lived on a ranch in Texas. So Just so sad, so devastating. They talked about how he basically spent all his money on cancer treatments, also, leaving his stay at home mom, wife, and 6 kids without a significant means to support themselves. So they started a GoFundMe and raised over $1 million, I think in just 24 hours for them, which, I have complicated thoughts on. We could talk about the state of healthcare in this country, which is abhorrent, and the fact that saving someone's life will absolutely bankrupt them and their family, and what it means to be wealthy or be wealthy for a time, how that doesn't last. But I mean, we could talk about this forever, but that's not what this podcast episode is about. I just thought it was nice to see their community support them and see his fans support his family after his death. And I just wish his wife and children the best, and may he rest in peace. I also have been watching The Traitors TV show. I watch it with my kids. It's so much fun for us. And I've been giggling this week. I haven't watched the most recent episode. So we're talking about, by the time you're listening to this, like a week and a half ago. But I've been giggling so hard because people are so upset, it seems, on Traitors and online about the way that Rob is playing the game and that he's being manipulative and stabbing people in the back. But that's literally the game. It's a TV reality game show. And I just think it's really, really funny to be upset about manipulation when you've signed up for a game to manipulate other people and to try to figure out who is doing the manipulating. So that's been kind of hilarious to watch play out online. I think it's been an interesting aspect of participating in the Traitors universe, but it's also been pretty fun. I'm trying to keep the pop culture section of the podcast short and sweet because I could yap about any of these things probably forever, but I want to know what your pop culture obsessions are this week. So if you're on a platform where you can leave a comment, definitely do that and let me know what you're into. But now on to the deep dive that you clicked for. Aaron Smith-Levin, ex-Scientologist, Growing Up in Scientology YouTuber. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I have been dragging my feet when it comes to filming this deep dive. I started it about 6 months ago now, and I started researching for it and started filming it 6 months ago. Even posted part of it to TikTok, but did not finish for several reasons. One, I had just had a baby. I had a not yet 2-month-old. It was a lot. And also because Aaron Smith-Levin is a YouTuber and has so much content out on the internet, and because all of his controversies have been addressed by him at length, there is so much to sift through, so much to look at, so many ways you could discuss this, and it was just a lot for me. And then on top of that, Aaron Smith-Levin sucks. That is my opinion of him. I don't like him. I don't like listening to him. I don't like watching him. And it's hard for me to dig through all of this shitty behavior on someone that I peripherally know because we are in the same industry or have the same job. I've met him in person one time. I'm internet friends with Liz Gale, who is involved in all of this in some way. So it's just weird to actually not be involved at all, but just kind of be on the edges of what's going on and watching what's happening. So it's just been a lot. But I really think that Aaron Smith-Levin has shown a pattern of coercive control and manipulation, especially against those that he's closest to. And he has often weaponized his following against people that he disagrees with in a way that is scarily similar to the cult that he was raised in. So that's never fun to deal with when you make content like this about people. But at the time, a few things happened, and I just really felt like it was time to compile some of these controversies in one place and to talk about it through the lens of what I discussed at the beginning of this video, because I think there's a lot we can learn from this. And I do think that people need to be warned about him to some degree and just think about the way that he is using his voice to harm others. This video is going to be a lot of my opinions, my opinion on the situation. That's what my podcast is. It is through an educated lens. It is through a lens of trying to look at this from a cult-like perspective. And I will do my best to talk about what is my opinion, what is someone else's opinion, and what the facts of the situation are. And if it feels like I'm giving a lot of disclaimers for this conversation, I kind of am, because I am not going to go back and forth with people in the comments of this video or of any of the clips that I make of this, because I'm going to say what I have to say. I'm going to give my opinion. And if you want to argue about that, you can argue with other people in the comments, but it's not going to be with me. Otherwise, I will be going back and forth with people to no end. And one last thing before we officially are starting, like I said earlier, there are a lot of controversies that we could sift through and talk about. Aaron Smith-Levin has been accused of harming women, even assaulting women, allegations of drug and alcohol abuse, a lot of allegations of cheating and manipulation within his relationships. And there has been a lot of back and forth arguments, fights, or drama, as it's often labeled, with nearly every single person that he has collaborated with and almost every single person in his ex-Scientology community. If I were to go through all of them, we would be here truly forever, and many of them have been argued to death anyway. And I have specifically been asked to not talk about a couple of major things and not bring it up again by the victims in that situation. So I'm not going to do that, because they do not want something dredged up again for his followers to attack them over again. So if you're wondering why I left certain things out, that's why. And we're going to leave it at that. And you can form your own opinions, as I am going to form my own opinions. But I will at least feel comfortable that the information is out there and that we've had this important discussion. I know some people might be surprised to hear I feel this way, but I actually don't think all victims are obligated to share their stories publicly, especially victims that are not public figures, not celebrities, and never asked for these stories to be shared on a large platform. I honestly hope this deep dive will just bring awareness to a person who I think is volatile at best and a potentially dangerous person, in my opinion, at the very worst, so that other creators can be cautious of collaborating with him, because that can get messy. So the people that he has bullied and coerced know that they're not alone and they're not crazy for feeling bullied and coerced. And so that hopefully people don't get sucked into his fandom through TikTok or through his YouTube videos. And so people don't blindly donate to his nonprofit organization, the SPTV Foundation, because I don't think that is a great place to give your money either. Which is his nonprofit foundation that may or may not be helping people leave Scientology, and that has caused so much division and harm to people who have already been so severely harmed by a major cult, Scientology. So who even is Aaron Smith-Levin? Aaron is an ex-Scientologist that was featured on an episode of Leah Remini's Scientology and the Aftermath. He shared a really sad story about how Scientology's disconnection policy affected his family. You can still find his episode of Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath on a few different streaming platforms to watch, or he has told his story himself on a couple of different podcast platforms that I'm going to talk about in a second. His episode became a fan favorite of the show because he told a story about how his Scientologist neighbor eventually disconnected from their family dog, and how at first the neighbor just disconnected from the human members of the family but said she didn't want to disconnect from their dog, and then got really upset at them and had a final straw and was like, I have to disconnect from your dog too. Shortly after he did his episode with the TV show, he started his YouTube channel, Growing Up in Scientology. Allegedly, it was started with someone else, and they primarily were interviewing other ex-Scientologists. But now Aaron Smith-Levin is the only one that runs that YouTube channel, and he started posting more just like news and updates about Scientology, and still some interviews with ex-Scientologists. But he started posting and live streaming every single day. His channel really took off with these daily live videos, and also when he covered the Danny Masterson trial, he covered the first and retrial of Danny Masterson, and he attended the trial in Los Angeles and would go live after sitting and watching the court proceedings. So this was back in like 2021, 2022-ish. Aaron also gained significant growth from being on podcasts like the Lex Fridman podcast, which has 3.1 million views on YouTube, which is a lot for a YouTube video. And then he was also on Jordan Peterson's podcast, which, if we're talking about misogyny and some problematic viewpoints, Lex Fridman and Jordan Peterson are not misogynists in their beliefs and their viewpoints, I'll say that much. He's also been on several slightly smaller platforms that still got a lot of views, just not those millions or like 500,000 views as the other two. And I did want to mention that he went on Andrew Gold's podcast and spread a lot of anti-trans misinformation under the guise of it being his opinion. But two men sitting down talking about their opinions and thoughts on trans people, of which they've researched not at all, have no personal experience with, barely have any trans friends. I think Aaron Smith-Levin talks about the one trans person he's met one time. Just do not need to be sitting and discussing their thoughts on it. A lot of what they discussed was just flat out wrong and harmful. While Aaron Smith-Levin was in Scientology, he actually worked for a Scientologist and a Scientologist-run company that did hedge fund research. So they did research for big companies before they decided to invest in certain funds. And when he left Scientology, one of his clients gave him a chance to do that and start his business on his own because they felt bad that he got fired because he was leaving Scientology and the Scientologist boss had to disconnect from him. So Aaron Smith-Levin has done a lot of deep dives and research into different things in different companies. He actually was part of doing a lot of research against the MLM Herbalife in China. He actually helped like the government of China investigate Herbalife. So he's done deep dives on MLMs, which are very culty themselves. And Aaron has publicly done a lot of work exposing Scientology. And I think it's important that we mention that because I am not saying that he has never done anything good. I just think that the good that he's done doesn't get to outweigh or erase the bad things that he's done. Aaron's videos, though, are not only about exposing Scientology. It seems like every couple of months he has to come out and make a video addressing some kind of major controversy that he's had, usually harm against women, but also sometimes arguments or controversies or harm that he has caused to other ex-Scientologists within the community of people that speak out against Scientology. And believe it or not, the fighting and back and forth is not even unique to the ex-Scientology community. Lots of ex-cult communities can become and often struggle with becoming culty themselves because everybody leaving is at a different stage of healing. They're at a different stage of deconstruction and even understanding what a cult is and what happened to them. Some people leave and go to other cults. Some people treat the ex-cult community as their replacement for the community that they felt within the cult and rely on it just as heavily and make it just as big a part of their life as the cult was. There's just a lot of psychology that goes into it, a lot of relationships that are at play from people who are either unhealed or haven't been taught how to have a healthy relationship and definitely have not been taught how to have a healthy community. So it makes perfect sense that when you put all of that in one place that you're going to have mess, you're going to have issues, you're going to have conflict, and you're going to have some people that know how to deal with that and a lot of people that don't. I think we also see some of these dynamics play out in the cult survivor to influencer or content creator pipeline, which, like I said in the beginning of this, I am a part of that as well. But because of the popularity of cult documentaries, people are getting platforms on a much larger scale than they have in the past as whistleblowers for certain cults, especially cults that have major news storylines, that have celebrity cult members, that have documentaries that have done really well. People are going from just being a whistleblower to being a content creator and building a significant following based off of their personal story and their trauma. And I'm not necessarily saying that that is a bad thing. I think it can be done really well. I think that there are some things that you have to do to have that done really well. But being a content creator or an influencer or developing a large platform puts you at risk for also being a cult-like person yourself or developing a cult-like following of fans that are devoted to you in a way that's not so dissimilar from the cults that these people have left. You're taught in a cult to be cult-like. Those dynamics and those harms are normalized to you. So if you don't, again, unpack that, deconstruct it, you might perpetuate those things to an audience instead of just to like other people within your cult or to yourself. Because there's a lot of self-indoctrination that happens in cults as well. So if you're just transferring that without really taking the time to unpack it, that can be hard. I also think permanently living in your own trauma can be very difficult if you're not supported and healing and in process. Again, I think this can be done really well. I think first and foremost, everyone deserves to be able to tell their story. They deserve the space to be able to tell their story as much or as little as they feel like they want. But I think it's important to look out for people who are not perpetuating these harmful tools of influence as they're doing that. I think that we see this occur sometimes too, though, because cult documentaries, I think, can really exploit cult survivors by taking their stories and removing the survivors' control over their own story. The survivors don't get control over the edit, they don't get paid for it or compensated for it in any way. They're often not provided therapy or any support for dredging up their trauma because they want to. They want to do the right thing, they want to whistleblow, they want to inform, but that comes at a great significant cost. And I think being able to be more of a content creator puts your story in your own hands, and you can be compensated for it in whatever way you choose if you are able to build it to that extent. And I think that, again, the cult survivor to content creator can be really valuable if you're healthy about it. I personally decided to not share my own cult story early on. I've been creating content on TikTok about cults for the last almost 5 years, I think 5 years now. And I have barely told my own story. I've done it once or twice. I did it once almost in full at the very beginning. I bet you could even find the podcast if you dug through right now. But I made the decision not to talk about my own story and to explore cults through other stories, through celebrity cult members. I've really found this niche in pop culture and celebrities and the dynamic of that with cults. But I personally could not live in my own trauma while I was healing and dissecting and learning and creating. Daniela Mestenik-Young, who is, I've mentioned several times, she's a scholar of cults and extreme groups. She was raised in the Children of God cult. And I've heard her say similar things, that going and telling your story can be so re-traumatizing, and you should wait a long time before you force yourself to do that until you've processed, until you can have the right support. I know not everybody has that privilege and luxury, because a lot of people, I think about the NXIVM situation and how Keith Raniere was actually arrested because of people blowing the whistle and going public with their story. So I think in those cases, obviously tell your story as you can, as you feel able, but continuing to create content about it without dissecting, healing, giving yourself time can just create this really unhealthy dynamic. And I think that we see that with Aaron Smith-Levin and with Growing Up in Scientology. I do want to be clear that I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else or doing a perfect job, but I am trying to learn and grow and be better every day and learn more about cults and undue influence and coercive control. And I am saying that if you are someone who is going to consume cult content, cult survivor content, if you're going to watch the documentaries and be entertained and shocked by what goes on in these organizations, then I think you should just pay attention. Spot the patterns, learn a little bit about cults if you can, and know that you too can be sucked into a cult of personality. You're not exempt from being in a toxic situation just because you weren't raised in a cult or you didn't join an actual cult organization. And I think we should support cult survivors with that idea in mind, that these patterns can perpetuate. So after Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath TV show, Aaron Smith-Levin and a few other people started what at the time was called the Aftermath Foundation. It is now called the Michael J. Rinder Aftermath Foundation. They renamed it after Mike Rinder sadly passed of cancer last year. And as Aaron grew on YouTube, he was raising money for and promoting the Aftermath Foundation often. And the mission of the Aftermath Foundation was to help people who were trying to escape Scientology, because when you are in, especially in the Sea Org, but sometimes even just as parishioners, if your whole life revolves around Scientology, your job is with Scientologists, all of your family and friends are Scientologists, and you want to leave and they all disconnect from you, you now have no friends, no family, no job, no way to make a living. A lot of people who are raised in the Sea Org or who join the Sea Org and work there their whole life don't really have job history or job skills to go off of. So they were basically helping people navigate that while trying to leave Scientology. He was also good friends with Mike Rinder and Mark and Claire Headley. Mark and Claire Headley have done a lot to expose the abuses of Scientology and help people who have left as well. They have the YouTube channel called Blown for Good. They wrote a book about leaving. They were in Leah Remini's Scientology and the Aftermath as well. And they were on the board of the Aftermath Foundation. While Aaron Smith-Levin was on the board of the Aftermath Foundation and building this YouTube platform talking about the abuses of Scientology, he also decided to run for Clearwater City Council in late 2021, going into early or spring of 2022, I believe is when the actual election was. He was very much supported by Mike Rinder, the Headleys, Leah Remini, and other ex-Scientologists to do this because, if you don't know, Scientology basically owns the city of Clearwater, especially the downtown area. Scientology parishioners own a lot of the buildings. Scientology itself as an organization owns a lot of the buildings, and they want Clearwater to be basically a Scientology town. That was always the plan for it. So in Aaron Smith-Levin's mind, having someone who understands Scientology, who isn't afraid of Scientology, and who will stand up to them basically on the city council was very important and a great idea, and a lot of people agreed with him. He raised a lot of money for his campaign through his YouTube channel and talked about it often, but he ultimately lost that Clearwater City Council race, and a lot of people think that it's because the Tampa Bay Times reported that Aaron Smith-Levin had been involved in a couple different bar altercations where the police had been called over the past couple of years. The article in the Tampa Bay Times came out on January 20th, 2022, and it referenced first an incident that happened in September of 2021 when Aaron Smith-Levin went to a cigar bar at Clearwater Beach to basically talk to constituents and drum up support for his council run. And in this incident, Aaron Smith-Levin actually called 911 at 11 p.m. saying that a man punched him in the head after Aaron had yelled at this guy's girlfriend. Aaron had said he called the guy's girlfriend crazy and got punched, but several witnesses at the bar said that Aaron Smith-Levin very loudly was insulting this guy's girlfriend and repeatedly called her a cunt over and over again. The guy went to go tell Aaron to shut up and stop talking about his girlfriend, and Aaron got in his face, screamed at him, got really aggressive, and then the guy punched him in the head. Aaron declined to press charges at the time because the police officers told him that he was the provocateur in that situation and that no judge in their right mind would prosecute this guy after Aaron was verbally assaulting his girlfriend, as corroborated by several witnesses. This was not just a he said, she said. The Tampa Bay Times actually got a hold of this guy, and he accused Aaron Smith-Levin of sending really hateful and harassing messages to his girlfriend a year prior to that. And there was this pattern of Aaron Smith-Levin being awful towards a woman, extremely disrespectful. Whenever Aaron Smith-Levin is confronted with his bad behavior, he says the pressures of growing up in Scientology and leaving and being fair gamed push him to the brink every day, and that it's really, really hard to deal with. And he has good days and bad days, and the bad days are completely because of Scientology and the difficulty of dealing with the aftermath of it. He uses really exaggerated heated language, like the difficulty of dealing with this is impossible to communicate. You have no idea the havoc that this has wrought on my life. It is so, so hard. And this is common language used by narcissists when they are trying to prove a point or make themselves the victims. I'm not diagnosing Aaron Smith-Levin as a narcissist. I am simply saying this emotional language is a tactic of coercion or undue influence. In that same article, the Tampa Bay Times said that the manager of a bar in downtown Dunedin actually trespassed Aaron Smith-Levin in 2020 because he was harassing two women at the bar. The witness reports in that incident say that he was catcalling two women and then started calling them and their boyfriends names when the women were not reciprocating his advances. And in that particular incident, it wasn't even like the girlfriends or the boyfriends that called the cops or anything like that. It was the bar manager who issued a trespass warning because he refused to leave, even though it was clear to everyone else around him that he was the aggressor in the situation. So those are two instances of him harassing women where the police were actually called. Now, I don't know where exactly this fits on the timeline, but sometime I think after Aaron Smith-Levin's run for Clearwater City Council and failing to achieve that, an email was sent to the Aftermath Foundation board, basically complaining about Aaron Smith-Levin and his just behavior as a human. I had said earlier that apparently Aaron Smith-Levin started his YouTube channel with another ex-Scientologist. I don't know exactly who this was or what their name was, but apparently that's the same person that sent this letter to the Aftermath board. I've linked this letter along with the article from the Tampa Bay Times in the show notes or the description box, so you can read both of these things and form your own opinions about it. But at the beginning of this letter, this person says that he had an agreement with Aaron Smith-Levin that Aaron would not make this person's videos that were on the Growing Up in Scientology account public if they didn't tell anyone about the fact that he goes on regular cocaine binges and sleeps with hookers because he's in an open marriage. The letter says that Aaron Smith-Levin hid this person's videos after years of calling of this person. Let me just read it to you. I don't know what I'm doing. Let me read this snippet. The letter says, he hid my videos after years of me calling him out for having betrayed our agreement and starting Growing Up in Scientology together, where after my interviews, he decided he owned all of my footage since they were shot on his phones and that I had no say in what could or could not go up, which I provided proof of to the board last year. He went on to say, you'll see this gentleman's agreement play out. Once one of you forwards this to Aaron, he'll have a conniption like he did earlier this year and send my videos live in retaliation on the channel I founded with him. This is extremely manipulative and coercive behavior. Holding videos hostage so somebody will comply with your demands is wild. And this is also a pattern that you will see continued throughout this video. This person also says that they have provided proof of Aaron's problematic behavior to the board of the Aftermath Foundation a year prior to this email. I don't know who was on the board on that at that time or who saw that proof and decided that it wasn't problematic enough that Aaron was being manipulative or controlling, but I do think that there is some patterns of that throughout this as well. I'm going to continue reading some of this because I think that it really just shows the level of heinous intent in what this is accusing. The letter says, he's saying that I have to stay silent or else he'll send my videos live again. This is literally the head of an organization whose purpose is to help Scientology victims, and he's extorting me with videos he knows affects my mental health since he directly told me he didn't need my permission when I begged him not to post them on our channel. I've openly told him in numerous emails over the years that I've dealt with being suicidal, depression, severe complex PTSD, Lyme disease, and debilitating health issues for the last 6 years, having seen dozens of psychologists and even having to go to the ER for nervous breakdowns, and leveraging my very vulnerable Scientology story over me that he illegitimately got out of me is how he sees fit to treat me. I can provide the rest of the conversation in which he admits that the channel was our mutual project and how he didn't give a flying fuck when I begged him to not post a standalone clip of me talking about my drug use from my interview and the multiple times he yelled and he didn't give a fuck when I brought up his cocaine and hooker penchant. Aaron Smith-Levin yelling and screaming at people who disagree with him or don't want to put up with his abuse is also a common theme you will see throughout this video and these accusations. I'm going to read one more part of this to you and then we'll move on from this letter. But the letter goes on to say, this is on the heels of him soliciting 3 college-age individuals last year to commit a Class A felony by hacking into the Bel Air mission. Scientology actually made videos about this. 2 of these college-age kids were openly addicted to drugs, struggled with suicidal ideation, were on the dole form from the Aftermath Foundation. Sorry, that was a little confusing. And Aaron thought it was harmless that he was colluding with them to commit a Class A felony against Scientology. Aaron even went as far as to admit he contacted his computer-savvy buddy to work out the logistics of it. He then made a video playing it off like it was all in good fun. But then why did he refuse to take a voice stress analysis with the police when both of the other college students did? And many of you know personally how redacted name now feels about the help she got from Aaron in the aftermath. This is on top of him illegally violating the privacy of an Aftermath applicant, redacted, some years ago, going as far as publicly shaming the gay ex-Sea Org member because Aaron had a personal vendetta against him. He coerced redacted into sweeping it under the rug when she tried to call him out for it. He says there's more. I really recommend you go read this entire letter because it's absolutely crazy. But this person also says there are many stories of the board turning the other cheek in the face of Aaron's maleficence. That you've done nothing but shrug your shoulders for years makes you complicit and hypocritical. If this isn't enough for you, I have many more texts of Aaron's extortion along with plenty more recordings, constantly referencing the deal/the arrangement we had in which he incriminates himself. So there are some pretty heavy accusations in here. It is a big deal for someone who is the head of a nonprofit that is supposed to help such vulnerable people. And this started a whole explosion, I guess you could say, of the Aftermath Foundation and Aaron's friendships and relationships with Mike Rinder, Leah Remini, and Mark and Claire Headley, along with several others. From what I've pieced together from people who have told this story and from what I remember of this story at the time, this letter is what led to Aaron Smith-Levin being asked to step down from the board of the Aftermath Foundation. And he allegedly agreed to do so in like 3 months' time. And then when the 3 months went around, there was a lot of back and forth and fighting about whether he was actually going to leave or not. So the board had to take greater measures to officially vote him out. But of course, at the time, Aaron Smith-Levin made a very long YouTube video basically getting his version of the story out to his followers before anyone else could tell the story or before anyone else could learn that he was kicked off the board of a nonprofit. As a cult content creator, I was one of his followers at the time, meaning I watched his videos because he shared a lot of Scientology news. I had just met Liz Gale on TikTok and we had collaborated a couple of times. So we were colleagues, internet friends, and I was pretty shocked to hear about it. Not because I don't think Aaron Smith-Levin could ever do something that bad, but because of the detail in which he came out and shared his version of events. So it appeared online that Aaron Smith-Levin and Mike Rinder and the Headleys' relationship completely imploded. They stopped collaborating. They seemed to be fighting with each other behind the scenes based on all the emails that we as the public were seeing of all of this back and forth. And I think it was around this time that Mike Rinder also got diagnosed with cancer. And Aaron Smith-Levin hosted a fundraiser for Mike Rinder because the treatment that he needed was really expensive. His insurance doesn't cover it. If any of you have been through cancer with yourself or your families, you know how difficult a cancer diagnosis can be, how difficult it is to navigate insurance and treatments and things like that. So Aaron did a fundraiser specifically for Mike. And in hindsight, I think that Aaron Smith-Levin did this to look like a good person so that if people said that he was a bad person or did bad things, that he could be like, why would you say that? I just want to be friends with everybody. Look at all of these things that I do for Mike and Claire and Mark, and I fundraise for his cancer diagnosis. But at one point during all of this, Aaron made a video, or said in a live video at one point, that Mike Rinder didn't even have cancer, that it was some other kind of throat diagnosis that wasn't terminal and wasn't that big of a deal, and he just needed some kind of different treatment for. So he made it really clear that he thought Mike was lying about his diagnosis, and he was just helping him out anyway because he was such a good person, thus making Aaron Smith-Levin look good and Mike Rinder look bad. Now, when this all started, the Aftermath Foundation chose to stay mostly silent about the situation. They made a brief statement about it and decided not to go back and forth with Aaron in videos or addressing his version of the story, which I do think is the right thing, like, to do in that situation when someone goes on the attack. But what it meant for us as viewers was that we only had one version of the story. And we didn't have information of the history and patterns of abuse that Aaron Smith-Levin perpetuated. He seemed like he was addressing these like one or two very specific things about the Tampa Bay Times and the letter from Nick. And he made a lot of the issues about his lifestyle choices. He said that he was in an open marriage and that the board of the Aftermath Foundation didn't approve of that, didn't get that, and wanted to control what he was allowed to do in his personal life. And for me personally, a lot of what Aaron was saying made sense. I thought he had a lot of valid criticisms of the board of the Aftermath Foundation, and there were a lot of ex-Scientologists that agreed with him on those criticisms. Criticisms like only having certain couples running the board and not having any diversity on the board. And especially the board that is supposed to help people leaving Scientology being made up of people that were high up in Scientology's Sea Org, that were often responsible for carrying out orders and perpetuating abuse on these people that were asking to leave, to me seemed like valid criticisms that I thought the Aftermath board should address. So I made a video at the time with Liz Gale, basically looking at all of the information we had, and we were like, hey, listen, if somebody wants to be in an open marriage, that's fine. That's not weird. And if someone, partakes in extracurricular substances once in a while, who hasn't done that, right? Like, that's not as big of a deal for everybody. And if someone's just a loud and big guy and has, not altercations, but disagreements with people in a bar setting, that makes sense. People are crazy on alcohol. Who knows what, like, the other side of the story is, like, things like that. And just ex-Scientologists in general not being happy with the way that the Aftermath Foundation board had been run, how they've given out help in the past, being a little bit wary of Mike Rinder and the Headleys because of their positions in the Sea Org, all seemed valid, and Liz and I kind of talked about that in a long video about it. But I never thought the board of the Aftermath Foundation were bad people, nor did I, like, the one point that I thought was valid from their limited perspective that they gave is if someone is repeatedly partaking in extracurricular substance activities and repeatedly going out and drinking in bars that somehow leads to altercations and is having people email them from the letter, it sounded like repeatedly, then I was like, maybe there is something to it. Like, even if Aaron isn't a terrible person, at the very least, there is a way that you need to conduct yourself as someone who is on the board of a nonprofit foundation that deals with such sensitive topics and people in such vulnerable situations. Like, yes, you can do whatever you want with your own life in your own time, even like, especially as a content creator or someone who talks about a specific topic. But that doesn't mean that people aren't going to think poorly of you for your decisions. And it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want in your free time when you're on the board of a sensitive nonprofit. You still, like, I didn't think it was crazy for them to kick him off the board. Like, I didn't think that was nuts. I did think that Aaron brought up some valid criticisms, and I still think that to this day. I stand by what I said in the original video. I just did not have enough information. Now, when Mike got more sick from his cancer that he did in fact have, which we know because he passed away last year from it, he did make a series of videos mostly addressing Aaron Smith-Levin and what he said about Mike Rinder and the Aftermath Foundation. And he gave us a little more information and context and accusations against Aaron that we didn't have when all of this happened the first go round, basically. In these videos, Mike Rinder said that those bar altercations that were reported on were not the only instances where they felt like Aaron was behaving poorly due to alcohol use. They said that they believed he had a drinking problem, that several times they had to take his keys from him because he had been drinking so much and was going to drive. He basically just alluded to the fact that there were several instances involving alcohol that were really concerning in regards to Aaron Smith-Levin and his behavior, safety-wise and public image-wise for, again, the board of a nonprofit foundation. Mike also believed that Aaron Smith-Levin was unilaterally denying people support and help from the Aftermath Foundation when applications would come in without notifying any of the rest of the board. Now, when I've made a couple of posts on TikTok about Aaron Smith-Levin's news, behavior, things that he's done, I also had somebody DM me and tell me that they reached out to help from the SPTV Foundation, which we will talk about here in a second, and said that they were also ghosted by Aaron Smith-Levin. They don't know if he ever notified the rest of the board of the foundation. They only spoke to Aaron, and that he ghosted them. And they felt it was because their story was not like shocking enough for Aaron to use for content. And they didn't have enough information that he could use by them kind of staying under the radar either. That is just an anonymous allegation. I'm not saying I know for sure that Aaron did that. But with those two accusations, it did make me think about how so often in his videos, he would say an under the radar Scientologist gave me this information. And I do think it's reasonable to think that under the radar Scientologists would feed him information to make videos about Scientology. But you have to wonder, again, putting together the patterns of behavior, if he maybe was put in contact by these people, reaching out to the Aftermath Foundation, wanting to leave Scientology. And he was like, no, don't leave, stay under the radar and feed me information about what's going on inside Scientology so we can make it public and take them down. That is a specific allegation that Mike Rinder made. Mike Rinder said he believed that Aaron Smith-Levin denied a woman named Reese help from the Aftermath Foundation and asked her to stay in so she could feed him information. Mike Rinder also said at the time that he believes that Aaron became verbally aggressive and abusive towards the women that were on the board of the Aftermath Foundation. So again, here's another accusation with witnesses, a pattern of him verbally attacking women. It is interesting, though, often when Aaron addresses these things, he doesn't necessarily deny them. He mostly just provides an excuse or a reason for his behavior. Like, I don't know, that he was provoked or because of Scientology or because he's having such a hard time or because of his lifestyle and nobody likes him and nobody likes his lifestyle. But he doesn't ever really deny that he did these things. So like I said, bare minimum, why would you want to be on the board of a nonprofit foundation where you have to conduct yourself publicly in a specific way if you are refusing to publicly conduct yourself in a specific and an appropriate way? I also want to add in here that Liz Gale has been going live on her channel, and she made a video the other day talking about a little bit from her perspective of how she's been wrapped up into the Aaron Smith-Levin of it all and how she viewed some of this stuff happening. And she did say that at this time, Aaron, who again, she just knew through the ex-Scientology community, through both of them having been on Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath, and both being content creators online, he started calling her and giving her stories of what's about to come out and why it's about to come out and why he did what he did. And she was like, it was a red flag at the time, but you don't always think about these things when they're happening in real time. Like it's just hard when you're in it to see it for what it is often. And she was like, this person never called me a friend, never helped, like offered to help me out in any way, never texted me to check in on my life. Like, they weren't friends in that sense. They were colleagues and in the same community. So him giving her these phone calls and sharing these stories with her, but they very obviously were him giving her his version of the story of things that were about to come out before they came out, which is a tactic of abuse and coercive control. Wanting to control the narrative before anyone else hears about the bad behavior that did happen. Again, never denying the bad behavior, giving reasons, excuses, whatever for them. Now, after Aaron Smith-Levin is kicked off the board, beefs with all his friends on the internet, and has a really crazy, dramatic time of having to address all these allegations, do you think he took the L and decided to evaluate himself and evaluate his life and his behavior and how his actions appear to other people, or if he even wants to publicly be responsible for helping people out of Scientology, or maybe he just wants to be a content creator so he can have whatever crazy ass lifestyle he wants to have, which I absolutely agree you're allowed to have. Do you think he did that? Do you think he took a step back? No. He said, you know what I'll do? I'll start my own foundation and I'll keep doing exactly what I was doing in the Aftermath Foundation, because I don't think any of that was wrong, inappropriate, concerning, abusive, harmful to other people. None of that. So he started his own foundation called the SPTV Foundation. So again, if you aren't in the know, if you haven't paid attention to any of this over the years, the SPTV Foundation stands for Suppressive Person TV. When Aaron started getting really big on YouTube and helping share people's stories, he started inviting everyone else to make their own channels. And this was another thing that I thought was a good thing. Like, even looking back on it, I think it's a good thing. Because a lot of times, like I said at the beginning of the video, documentaries take people's stories and they are in control of the edit and how they're perceived and all of those things. And that can be really hard for cult survivors to deal with. And Aaron was basically saying, like, here, come take your story in your own hands. You can be compensated for it on your own channel. You're in charge of the edit. You're in charge of your story, and you're in charge of how much or how little you want to share. And it was great. Like, people loved it. Tons of ex-Scientologists started coming on and making their own channels, telling their stories, like, which ultimately I think is helpful and a good thing. And people started calling it SPTV because when you're kicked out of Scientology, basically, or you leave and start speaking out about it, you're what they call declared a suppressive person. So it was all these suppressive people coming on and sharing their own stories. And similarly, when Aaron started the SPTV Foundation to continue helping people leave Scientology, he made a very diverse board of his nonprofit. And that was a very specific criticism against the Aftermath Foundation. There were people of different races, different genders, different orientations, all representing and having a voice, and different levels within Scientology, Sea Org, non-Sea Org people. And it seemed on the surface to be a lot better of a situation with everybody's voice having more of a say in how people leaving Scientology were going to be helped. But apparently, starting literally in the first board meeting they ever had, Aaron was, you guessed it, verbally aggressive and abusive to a specific woman on the board and bullied her so bad that she immediately quit being on the board of the SPTV Foundation. I have personally been DM'd kind of alluding to the fact that something like that had occurred. And again, this was right from the jump. And then Liz and Dylan, another person that was on the board of the SPTV Foundation, did do a video together that I mentioned just a minute ago. Dylan hopped on Liz's live at some point, and they talked a lot about like those early days of the SPTV Foundation and why it appeared to be a better thing on the surface and how it kind of went downhill. And their experiences sound very similar to what it's like to unknowingly join a cult and then still try to salvage it and hope that you're still part of a good thing, that you want to be helping people, and then realizing that there is nothing that you can do and basically leaving. The board of the SPTV Foundation was quite large when it first started, and it has been whittled down to just 3 people the last time I checked, although I think that was about 6 months ago when I first started researching for this. And I think the page of who was on the board has been removed at this point. But 6 months ago, it was just Aaron, Natalie Webster, and Jenna Miscavige. So at some point through the process of the SPTV Foundation, every single person that was on the board decided to leave because there were problems that they saw happening and didn't want to be part of a foundation that operated that way. Not to mention Aaron's publicly terrible behavior and the constant back and forth fighting that he had with everyone who left the board, everyone who ever collaborated with him. It goes on and on and on. So no one knows who the SPTV Foundation is accepting, denying. No one really knows who they're helping and how they're helping. And I get it. When people are leaving Scientology, like a lot of it has to be anonymous. So it's not like I want them to publish exactly who they're helping and when and how and why. But that works to their advantage, because how do we know that they're even helping anyone at all? I also don't think there's any financial transparency or financial accountability. When everyone on a board is in someone's inner circle and that person sees themselves as a leader that will just bully people into agreeing with him, that is 1000% not a safe space for survivors of an abusive cult. And I would strongly caution anyone against going to the SPTV Foundation for any reason whatsoever. I think even if you are helped there, it is incredibly risky to go to those people and that kind of organization for help because of the way that it's run. I don't think your story will be safe there. There's just a lot of things to consider. And a big part of the reason I wanted to make this and have this live on the internet somewhere is because I don't think the SPTV Foundation is a safe place for survivors. Of course, that is my personal opinion, and I strongly encourage people to do more research about this. I'm telling this story from my perspective and my opinion of things. So obviously look into it yourself. But that is definitely how I feel about the situation. I will also say, in regards to the SPTV seeming like a very cult-like organization and the greater like fan base or inner circle of Aaron Smith-Levin seeming very cult-like with tactics of manipulation, whenever cult survivors leave their cult and they don't unpack that, they also often leave with traits of narcissism and superiority. Cults teach you how to be a narcissist and teach you how to feel better than everyone else. The whole point of a cult is that they have the answers, they have the right way to do things. It's very black and white thinking. And it is really hard to go from that black and white thinking to shades of gray. It's really uncomfortable for people. And I think some people leave cults because they recognize the bigger picture of harm and oppression to everyone, to other people, to children, to women and children, or just like everyone in general. And I think some people leave cults because they themselves were specifically harmed at a specific time and didn't seem to much believe it when they saw other people being harmed. But once they were actually harmed, that's when they left. It is my opinion that that is the case with Aaron. It seems like he's learned these traits. Again, I can't diagnose him. I don't know if he's a narcissist. I don't know what he could ever possibly have. I do know that he is displaying characteristics of someone who learned that he was superior to other people because of his beliefs and never unlearned that. And as far as the people who have been seemingly in his circle for a long time and then like slowly leave, when you leave a cult dynamics are normalized. You don't know what a healthy group looks like. You don't know what a healthy organization looks like. You might know more or better than you did when you were in the cult, but that's also why people cult hop often, is because you become part of something that's not nearly as bad as the horrible thing you left. And so you think that a lot of the behavior is normalized or better than what you were in. So it makes it really hard to realize that it's still bad, that it's still not healthy and not good for you or the other people in it. Okay, let's move on to some of Aaron Smith-Levin's actual arrests and problematic behavior outside of just attacking women. But problematic behavior when it comes to speaking about Scientology and protesting Scientology. Now, I will preface this section by saying I agree with protesting. I think organizing together and protesting things is part of our civic duty. It is our right. I think protesting Scientology is a worthy and worthwhile thing to protest against, to protest their tax exemption status, to protest against their abuse against children. There are many, many things I think worth protesting Scientology for. And at some point, Aaron Smith-Levin got involved with a group of protesters, specifically Streets LA, Jessica Palmadessa, people that protested things on TikTok that kind of protest for content. And I do think they protest to raise awareness about certain things. I think that's all fine. At some point, Aaron Smith-Levin got involved with this and thought it was a great idea, I think personally for content, but you know, for whatever reason, he decided to start publicly protesting against Scientology and filming it. There was one particular protest in Los Angeles in, I think, January of 2024. That's what the best that I could find from what I was researching for this and what I remember from watching. Aaron and several ex-Scientologists and other protesting streamers got together to protest Scientology's like recruiting building on Hollywood Boulevard, which these more consistent protest streamers had been doing for a while. And during this protest, Aaron was streaming, walking back and forth, talking to Scientologists, like, you know, yelling at people in the building. And there was one man that like kept walking by over and over again. And I guess that guy had intimidated or attempted to attack protesters in the past. So Aaron, and it was alleged that this man was being paid by Scientology to kind of harass protesters. So Aaron followed this man and started kind of talking to him, yelling at him. The guy had a cane. And at one point, the guy turned around and was like, "Stop yelling at me," and hit Aaron Smith-Levin with the cane that he had in his hand. So again, in this situation, Aaron called the police. He called the police and said, "This person attacked me. Somebody needs to come out here, take a report." And remember, all we can see is Aaron's version of events from behind his screen. So the cops come, they talk to Aaron, the protest moves to a different location, the cops are talking to him some more. They are working things out, and it turns out that Aaron Smith-Levin gets arrested for being the aggressor in that situation. Now, this was extremely complicated because the LAPD does often side with Scientology. They are in Scientology's pocket. This is well documented. This has been talked about on Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath. And people have a right to protest, to say things. And it really like appeared to me from behind Aaron's screen again, that he was just walking and yelling at somebody and that somebody got aggressive and hit him. And that is against the law, right? Like you can't lay your hands on people. But it is much more complicated than that. And with the hindsight and the information from the bar incident where Aaron Smith-Levin very clearly instigated that situation, I wonder now if the police were like, "We have tons of witnesses saying that you were screaming at this man, following him down the street, and he told you to stop and leave him alone, and you didn't, and then he turned around and hit you." I don't know. I wasn't there. Those are the two versions of events. LAPD is in Scientology's pocket. The LAPD is corrupt as hell. Like, they're also not great. These are lots of not great people and situations into one. But I do think this information becomes important when we talk about the next arrest of Aaron Smith-Levin. Because again, do you think he would stop, evaluate, think about his actions, think about how they led to what they led to? No, he said, "I'm not wrong. I'm never wrong. Let me do this exact thing again." But first, I'm going to tell my story of like my experience protesting with Aaron Smith-Levin. In April of 2024, I went down for another protest that a bunch of ex-Scientologists were coming into town for. I went because I wanted to meet Liz Gale in person. And I also am in the Clearwater area a couple of times a year anyway. And it was very easy for me to go and show up, meet Liz, talk to some of the people that I have been collaborating with online and people that had watched us. And I thought it would be great, to protest Scientology. Like I said, I agree with protesting against Scientology. So I went to the meetup in Clearwater. I went to the protests. I met Jenna Miscavige. I met Aaron. I hung out with Liz. But I do have experience being at a protest with Aaron Smith-Levin. And honestly, it was fine. Like, we wrote on the sidewalk with chalk. We just kind of stood and like around the Scientology buildings, like, again, making our presence known, protesting. I didn't feel that weird about it. We walked around the building at one point, but I did personally feel like Aaron, anytime a Scientologist approached the building, he would start trying to talk to them or yell at them or follow them in or follow really closely behind them. And I did think that was weird. Like, it only happened a couple of times because only a couple of people came in the building while we were out there, but he would start being very loud, being very aggressive, following them. And granted, when they went in the building, he would leave them alone, but the vibes were off, and it felt to me like he was trying to provoke a reaction for content. Everyone was nice enough, but after that, I was like, I would hang out with Liz Gale again anytime. But as far as attending Scientology protests with ex-Scientology content creators or ex-Scientologists, I remember coming home and telling my husband, like, there's something off. There's something off. I don't know what it is. I don't like it. Nothing crazy happened, but I'm not going to go to another meetup like this again, and I'm not going to protest with these people again. Now, in July of 2025, Aaron Smith-Levin was out protesting in front of the Flag Building in Clearwater, Florida, with several other protesters, live streaming the whole thing. They were there with chalk and like chalk powder. I don't know where the idea of chalk powder came from. Like, I don't even know what you would do with chalk powder. It's not like you can write on the sidewalk with it. And the whole point of the chalk, I thought, was that it's relatively harmless. It washes off with water. Like, Scientology can wash the chalk off with water. The rain will wash the chalk off, like whatever we write on the public sidewalk. I felt like chalk was a creative, artistic, and harmless form of protest. And there were Scientology security guards outside during this protest washing the chalk off the sidewalk, which they have the right to do, especially on their private property. And at one point, Aaron Smith-Levin aggressively approaches the Scientology security guard and throws chalk at him while he's trying to wash off the sidewalk. An ambulance was called because this person, I guess, felt like they were inhaling chalk and had respiratory issues and wanted to file a report and get checked out. And so the police came, and Aaron Smith-Levin was arrested for, I think, battery. I made a TikTok video about this, so I'm going to put that in here now so you can see the video of Aaron, in my opinion, very clearly assaulting this person.
Oh, it's just going to hit our water barrier, you losers. Yeah. Here you go.
Now, of course, according to Aaron and everyone that was there, it's just chalk. What's the harm in it? But as someone with asthma, if someone threw chalk like that at me, I would also have to get checked out. That actually can really harm your respiratory system. It could cause me to not be able to breathe for a while, especially if I didn't have my emergency inhaler. But it can also cause like infection if it damages. Like, you're not supposed to inhale that chalk. That chalk is harmless, but you're not supposed to inhale it into your face. And again, him literally charging that man and throwing it at him for no reason is super aggressive. I don't know how people are seeing this differently, to be quite honest with you. And knowing how Scientology is and how they will use anything they can against you, why on earth would they, whether it was harmful or not, how would you not think through the possibility that Scientology would do everything they can to use it against you anyway? Like, it was just a terrible, terrible idea and action, no matter how you spin it. And of course, Scientology is taking this to the full extent and saying that this man was targeted because he was a member of a federally recognized religious organization. Like, it doesn't look good. After that incident, though, Aaron Smith-Levin was released from jail the next day on a $1,000 bond. And yes, now that I'm looking at it, he was charged with a first-degree misdemeanor battery. Then on November 13th of 2025, Aaron Smith-Levin's bail was revoked and he was remanded into custody because he was accused of another battery against another church member. So in this second incident, which happened like months prior, but then the church filed a misdemeanor battery charge in October. So the timelines of everything are a little complicated, and this incident is still pending. Like, he still has trials and things to deal with for both of these incidents, but he was, again, live streaming, protesting Scientology. He was at the door of a Scientology building yelling at somebody inside the building, inside private property, and someone came out and closed the door on him, and I'll put it in this video as well. And again, you can only see so much from Aaron's point of view, and he yells at this person saying, "You hurt me, you assaulted me." I'm assuming because they closed the door on him.
Is there any way that you could allow Flavio Lugli to contact his parents? Aaron, they're trying to reach him. Ow! Ow! What did you just do? You just hurt me. You just injured my foot. This isn't trespassing. You're lying. This is the property line. The property line is right here. You just committed.
But when the bail was revoked and when Aaron was in court, the judge saw this incident from a different point of view, likely Scientology cameras. And we don't know exactly what happened yet because trial hasn't happened, but it was enough to remand him into custody and keep him in jail because he committed another alleged battery against a Scientologist. And I think when you put it in the greater context of patterns of Aaron Smith-Levin pushing boundaries and being extremely aggressive while live streaming, this is at best a terrible way to go about this. And at worst, Aaron Smith-Levin is assaulting people in broad daylight and thinking that it's fine. And he can just do that. I also think in Aaron's version of events in a lot of this, he seems to think that like verbally being aggressive and abusive is not abuse. He only thinks being punched in the face is abuse. And he only gets mad when he gets punched in the face for being an aggressive, dangerous person. And that is a very male-centered way of looking at abuse. And it clearly shows that he has no concept of how he is bullying and attacking people. Or he does, and he's just lying about it. Like, that's the other option here, guys. I'm also going to include a photo in here that I found from Reddit that is a really good infographic to display like safe and unsafe types of protesting, because Aaron Smith-Levin loves to say that he's not doing anything wrong. But I think that this is just a good visual to show that he's also not doing anything right. So he's perpetuating harmful protest practices. He's like inviting people to do similar things. He is completely uneducated on the subject and is not educating himself whatsoever. So I, again, would very highly discourage anybody from protesting like this or protesting with him. Okay, let's move on to the Jenna Miscavige of it all. Because if I talked about every single woman who has accused Aaron Smith-Levin of cheating, of abuse, of assault, we would be here forever. And like I said at the beginning, there are certain things that certain people have asked me not to talk about. But I am going to talk about the Jenna Miscavige of it all because it was made public regardless of what happened after. And I'll explain. I know this probably sounds weird, but this was made public. So we're going to talk about it because I think it's important. During a lot of this Aaron Smith-Levin discourse, protest, things like that, Aaron Smith-Levin was on again, off again, dating Jenna Miscavige, who is the niece of the leader of Scientology, David Miscavige. I met Jenna when I went to protest down in Clearwater. She was super, super nice to me. I actually liked her a lot. But they were on again, off again dating at that time as well. And when I was there, they had gotten in a fight because of, I don't know if it was cheating issues or just relationship issues, but I do know they were on again, off again in a fight. And in January of 2025, Jenna Miscavige posted a video to YouTube titled, "He Cheated 3 Times That I Know Of." And in this video, she went on to talk about how Aaron Smith-Levin had cheated on her and mistreated her and even verbally abused her in their relationship. I made 2 videos about this on TikTok as she updated this because I thought it was important to spread awareness for what she was alleging, and like I'm doing right now, just spread awareness that Aaron Smith-Levin is manipulative, harmful, and has shown repeated patterns of treating women badly, has used his platform to get closer to some of these women, and is a not good person. I made these videos in January when Jenna Miscavige posted these videos, and then she took them down. She entirely took them off the internet. Her and Aaron kind of collaborated again here and there. They seem to have made up. They seem to have been back together. And I left my videos up because I stand by what I said. Unless Jenna Miscavige made a video saying I lied about every single thing I said in that video, I would not take it down. Just because she decided she didn't want them still up doesn't mean that that wasn't important information for the public to know, and it wasn't already made public. Therefore, my take on it stands. But in August of 2025, Jenna Miscavige and Aaron Smith-Levin decide to post a lot on TikTok. And Jenna Miscavige started blowing up on TikTok, getting millions and millions of views on her videos, talking about how she is the niece of the leader of Scientology, which I think is great. I actually still think that people should listen to Jenna Miscavige about Scientology specifically. I don't think anyone should listen to Jenna Miscavige about relationships or men, ever. But when it comes to Scientology, what she has to say is valid and her voice is important, and she has a right to share her story. I didn't love that she was tagging Aaron in every single video that she made, especially after she had exposed him for being dangerous to women. But something else happened when Jenna blew up on TikTok, which I had been on for years and years. When you searched the name Jenna Miscavige, my videos about her videos came up in the search. So I randomly one day get a text from Liz Gale saying, hey, Jenna Miscavige was asking me for your phone number, but I didn't give it to her because I don't have your permission to give out your personal information. But I told her that she can DM you on TikTok. So if you get a DM from Jenna, she wants to talk to you about something on TikTok, which I thought was weird that she was asking for my personal phone number from a internet colleague of mine. Internet colleague, internet friend. And I did get a TikTok DM from Jenna Miscavige basically saying, hey, when you search my name on TikTok, these videos of yours come up that talk about my videos that I made about Aaron, and I took them down, so I want you to take your videos down. When I got this DM, I didn't immediately respond. 1, because I had a newborn baby and I wasn't working 24/7, and 2, because I was genuinely working through like why she would ask me to remove my TikTok videos, and because she was so nice to me, I was like, well, maybe is there like a legitimacy to this request? Like I really wanted to give it some thought. But then not 12 hours later, I get a text message and it says, hey, it's Jenna. Like I don't know any other Jennas. I messaged you on TikTok. Can you please take down your video about me and Aaron? It's what people see when they search me. Me and Aaron are together and it's nobody's business. Except for when they made it everybody's business. So Jenna Miscavige did get a hold of my phone number, and it wasn't Liz Gale that gave it to her. I think 2 other people had my phone number. I collaborated with Marilyn years ago, because we were in similar evangelical cults. And so we did a live video together and she asked for my phone number to chat about like when we could go live. And I gave it to her because I'm an idiot and I don't think anyone ever has bad intentions. And instead of using like a protected number, I just gave her my phone number. And then Serge Delmar I collaborated with a couple of times. And so he has my phone number as well. So I don't know where Jenna got my phone number, but it was not from me and it was not from Liz Gale. So I responded and I said, hey Jenna, I saw your TikTok message and I haven't responded because I have a newborn and I'm operating pretty slow with work stuff right now. And I wanted to think about how best to respond. I'm curious though how you got my phone number and which videos specifically are you referring to? So she sent me the link to the video she was referring to. She said, I don't want the attention that my videos are getting being redirected to older videos about something private about my life that I've already deleted. You gave me your phone number when we met in Clearwater. No, I didn't. I didn't do that. I know I didn't do that. And I know she knows that I didn't do that because she already just asked Liz like the day before for my phone number that she didn't have the day before, which is why she DM'd me on TikTok. So that felt gross. And then she said, sorry if I'm coming off a bit aggressive. I'm grateful that you supported me then. I'm asking you to support me now too. This isn't what I want my videos being redirected to. If you want to react to my videos, I'm happy to repost you, but I wouldn't want to do that if this is what people are going to see. So now she's leveraging what she feels like is her fame or her internet notoriety or her name. She's leveraging being able to repost my videos, which, mind you, I don't need from her. I'm doing pretty well on TikTok on my own. But she said she's not going to collaborate with me and not going to repost my stuff if I don't do this specific request for her, which is manipulative and yucky. So I just said, after careful consideration, I've decided to leave my video up. Welcome to TikTok. I'm glad you're here. Because I am glad she's on TikTok and I am glad that she's talking about Scientology and she deserves to share her story and I want her there, but I'm not taking down my videos about something that I absolutely 100% stand by. Now, she was in Clearwater when she was texting me this. She had posted some stuff with Aaron or saying that she was at Aaron's. So I don't know how much Aaron was involved in this exchange or had influence over this, but after I told her that I'm not going to take my videos down and I hope she does well and all of that, she and Aaron both blocked me on TikTok. That video also was like mostly about Aaron and his poor behavior, not necessarily about Jenna Miscavige or their relationship. I was just saying, go watch her video because she talks about his poor and abusive behavior. And I believe at the time I said, I'm not in the business of covering up for shitty men, so why would I ever take that video down? And while this specifically was Jenna Miscavige asking me to take this down and leveraging her audience, I do believe that Aaron in the past has also tried to leverage his audience against other creators to either try to get them to take videos down or just to be on his side in different situations. I also think that's a little bit what is going on with Aaron and Jenna when they come to the public with their relationship issues and then take all of the videos down. I think it's because they both make videos about each other and Aaron says, I'll take mine down if you take yours down. Because after Aaron went to jail at the end of 2025 and then came home, he and Jenna did the same thing again where he posted a video to YouTube saying, Jenna's gonna say all of this stuff about me. It's coming out. Here's the truth about me and Jenna Miscavige. Our relationship isn't what it seems. She's a bad person, blah, blah, blah. Jenna came on reacting to his video. She made several more videos about how Aaron, again, is abusive, which she's done before, which we now see as a pattern. Are we putting two and two together here? In those videos, she again accused Aaron of being emotionally and even physically abusive. She said that he speaks to his current wife, because remember, he's still married. He's in an open marriage, according to him. But he speaks to his current wife like she is a dog. And in the previous videos, I'm pretty sure Jenna Miscavige said that either his kids told her or his kids told her kids that they hope he doesn't treat Jenna Miscavige like he treats their mom. I'm assuming because he treats their mom terribly. We did the whole back and forth again just for Jenna Miscavige to take down her videos and Aaron to take down his videos. Only this time, Liz Gale got involved in this somehow. Liz Gale made videos also saying, I agree with Jenna. Aaron is not a good person. And Aaron, in retaliation, made a video about Liz and her husband, which was based on complete lies and fabrications, which Jenna Miscavige put on YouTube, was a lie. Then she took it down. And guess what happened? Aaron essentially tried to negotiate with Liz. I'll take my video down if you take yours down, which she said, absolutely not. Why would I do that? So there is a pattern of him using his platform as a form of control. The last thing I will say about it, because guys, this video is long. It's not even the half of it. It's not even a quarter of it. But the last thing I will say is that when he was in jail, he had people who are left of his inner circle go on his channel and make videos for him so that he could maintain an income while he was in jail. The people who are left in his inner circle are all women. I think this makes a lot of sense based on the way he treats women and he uses them to gain what he wants and then discards them when they are of no use to him. I think for someone who so clearly mistreats women so often, it is really advantageous for Aaron Smith-Levin to have an inner circle of women who he has convinced that he is not as bad as he seems. We see him slowly whittling down even that inner circle because Jenna Miscavige is no longer in it. She was making videos for him while he was in prison, and then that all entirely blew up when he came home and when they did their back and forth videos again. I just wonder how many times someone can show a consistent pattern of behavior before everyone else realizes what is going on and stops enabling it. At this point, everyone who's still following him and consistently watching his videos is enabling his bad behavior, is enabling him to leverage his audience and his platform to use against people every time they disagree with him or want to call him out for doing something bad and wrong. I also think it's important to note that the women that Aaron Smith-Levin often targets are what you would call imperfect victims because of some struggles that they're having or because of the bad choices that they make or how they appear to the public. He specifically chooses to use women who lack credibility in a certain area, or he gives the public a reason to think they lack credibility in a certain area so that he can continue to abuse them and use them to his advantage before he ultimately discards them. So where is Aaron Smith-Levin right now? Currently, he's still a content creator. He still has his YouTube channel, Growing Up in Scientology, with over 200,000 subscribers. He's still creating content and he's awaiting trial for the incidences that he was arrested for. He is still attempting to leverage his platform and his content against anyone who would have any critical words to say against him. He's probably going to be pretty mad about this video. I don't know if he will retaliate or not. The thing that I have going for me is that what is he going to say about me? I mean, I'm sure he could make up lies the same way that he did against Liz Gale's husband, but why? Like, I really don't care. There's not anything he can threaten me with that is going to make me comply. And honestly, considering he's been doing this same thing for years and years and years, I'm sure he is going to continue doing more of the same. He's going to continue having a platform. He's going to continue leveraging it when he can. He's going to continue being awful towards women. Maybe he'll face consequences this time with jail time. Time will tell. And I'm honestly not even suggesting we do anything about it. I do think information is important. I do think having information readily available is an important thing so that people can look into these things for themselves and decide if that is something you want to partake in or support. And hopefully when you search Aaron Smith-Levin or Jenna Miscavige, there will be other points of view on him and his behavior that hopefully future women will be able to see and take into account before they decide if he is someone that they want to get involved with. Hopefully content creators will be able to see videos like this and look into it and decide if he is someone that they would willingly collaborate with. And that's all any of us that are looking at this from the edges or from the outside looking in can do. That's all we can really hope for is more information and more people having access to that information. This video has already been so long. When I tell you we only scratched the surface, I really mean it. I don't even know if this is like half or a quarter of like the major scandals and controversies that Aaron Smith-Levin has even addressed personally, let alone what he probably hasn't addressed or talked about at this point. If you're watching this on a video platform, I'm sorry that I didn't edit this with the additional visuals that I usually add into my YouTube videos, but guys, this took me forever. I don't have an editor. I have a family. Like, these things take forever to do, and I did my best, okay? The information's out there. I hopefully will never have to talk about Aaron Smith-Levin again, and we can get back to our pop culture, celebrity, reality TV, usual programming here over at Pop Cults with Cassie, and I will see you next week. Bye.